I've always been a stickler for punctuality, but that fateful morning in Boston, I was running late. The crisp autumn air nipped at my heels as I sprinted towards the bus stop, my briefcase swinging wildly at my side. I could see the bus approaching, and in my desperation, I didn't notice the woman standing in my path until it was too late. The bus screeched to a halt just as we collided, sending us both sprawling onto the sidewalk. "Shit!" I exclaimed, my perfectly pressed suit now covered in dirt and leaves. I turned to glare at the obstacle in my path, ready to unleash my frustration, but the words died on my lips as I met a pair of startling emerald eyes. "Watch where you're going," she snapped, her voice a mix of irritation and something else I couldn't quite place. She was stunning, with long, wavy black hair and olive skin that seemed to glow in the early morning light. I found myself momentarily speechless, captivated by the fire in her eyes. I'm sorry," I stammered, finally finding my voice. "I was just trying to catch the bus." I gestured lamely at the vehicle, which was now pulling away from the curb without us. Her expression softened slightly and she sighed. "Well, I guess we both missed it now." She stood up, brushing off her jeans and offering me a hand. I took it, feeling a strange tingle as our skin made contact. "I'm Leslie," I said, trying to regain some semblance of composure. "Leslie Thompson." "Maya Rodriguez," she replied, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "You always this graceful, Leslie?" I felt heat rising to my cheeks, unsure if I was more embarrassed by my clumsiness or flustered by her teasing tone. "Only on my best days," I quipped, attempting to match her wit. Maya laughed, a rich, melodious sound that sent an unexpected shiver down my spine. "Well, Leslie Thompson, I hope your day improves from here." As she turned to walk away, I found myself calling out, "Wait, can I buy you a coffee to make up for nearly running you over?" Maya paused, considering me for a moment. "I appreciate the offer, but I've got to get to work. Maybe another time?" I nodded, trying to hide my disappointment. "Sure, another time." As I watched her disappear around the corner, I couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened. I was so lost in thought that I almost missed the next bus, barely managing to squeeze through the doors before they closed. Throughout the day, I couldn't get Maya out of my head. Those green eyes haunted me, making it difficult to focus on my work at the marketing firm. By the time I met up with my best friend Sarah for our weekly happy hour, I was a mess of confusion and conflicting emotions. "Spill it, Les," Sarah demanded as soon as we sat down with our cocktails. "You've been distracted all day. What's going on?" I sighed, swirling the ice in my glass. "I met someone this morning. Well, more like I crashed into her." Sarah's eyebrows shot up. "Her?" I nodded, feeling a blush creep up my neck. "Yeah, her. Maya. She was. God, Sarah, she was breathtaking. And I can't stop thinking about her." "I thought you were straight," Sarah said, her tone more curious than judgmental. "So did I admitted, taking a long sip of my drink. "But there was just something about her. I've never felt that kind of instant connection before." Sarah leaned back in her chair, a mischievous glint in her eye. Well, Leslie Thompson, looks like you're in for quite the adventure." I groaned, dropping my head into my hands. "What am I supposed to do? I don't even know if I'll ever see her again." "Boston's not that big," Sarah reassured me. "If it's meant to be, you'll cross paths again." Little did I know just how right Sarah would turn out to be, or how dramatically my life was about to change. As I lay in bed that night, Maya's emerald eyes and teasing smile danced through my dreams, leaving me both exhilarated and terrified of what the future might hold. Weeks passed, and despite my best efforts, I couldn't shake the memory of Maya from my mind. I threw myself into work, hoping to distract myself from the confusing feelings swirling inside me. When my boss, Richard, asked me to scout locations for our upcoming ad campaign, I jumped at the chance. That's how I found myself standing outside a trendy art gallery in the heart of Boston's South End, my heart pounding with anticipation. As I pushed open the heavy glass door, the scent of fresh paint and possibility washed over me. "Welcome to Emerald Visions," a familiar voice called out. "How can I?" The words died in her throat as our eyes met. Maya stood before me, looking even more stunning than I remembered. Her raven hair was pulled back in a messy bun, revealing the graceful curve of her neck. A smudge of blue paint on her cheek only added to her allure. "Leslie," she said, her green eyes widening in surprise. "What are you doing here?" I fumbled for words, suddenly feeling like a teenager with a crush. I'm here for work, scouting locations for a photo shoot. I had no idea this was your gallery. Maya's lips curved into a smile that made my knees weak. Well, isn't this a pleasant surprise? Let me give you the grand tour. As she led me through the gallery, pointing out various pieces and explaining their significance, I found myself captivated not by the art, but by Maya herself. The passion in her voice, the way her eyes lit up when discussing a particularly meaningful piece, it was intoxicating. "This is perfect," I said when the tour concluded. "I think we'd love to use your gallery for our shoot, if you're interested." Maya's smile widened. "I'd be delighted. Why don't we discuss the details over a glass of wine?" I was just about to close up for the night. Before I could talk myself out of it, I heard myself agreeing. Soon, we were settled on a plush leather couch in her office, a bottle of rich red wine between us. As the night wore on and the wine flowed freely, I felt myself opening up to Maya in a way I never had with anyone before. We talked about our childhoods, our dreams, our fears. I found myself sharing things I'd never told anyone, not even Sarah. "You know," Maya said, her voice soft and slightly slurred from the wine, "I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since that day at the bus stop." My heart skipped a beat. "Really?" She nodded, leaning in closer. "There's just something about you, Leslie. Something that draws me in." The air between us crackled with electricity. Maya's gaze dropped to my lips, and I found myself leaning in, every fiber of my being yearning to close the distance between us. Just as our lips were about to meet, my phone erupted in a shrill ring, shattering the moment. I jerked back, fumbling to silence it. "Shit, I'm sorry," I muttered, glancing at the screen. It was Richard. "I have to take this." Maya nodded, disappointment evident in her eyes as she leaned back, creating distance between us. "Leslie," Richard's booming voice filled my ear, "I need you to drop everything. The Callahan account is in trouble, and we need all hands on deck." My stomach dropped. The Callahan account was our biggest client, a conservative, family-owned business that valued tradition above all else. Losing them would be catastrophic for the firm. "What do you need me to do?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady as I watched Maya begin to clean up our wine glasses. "We need to impress them, show them we understand their values," Richard said. "I hate to ask this, Leslie, but how would you feel about playing up the traditional angle? Maybe pretend to be engaged?" I felt like I'd been doused in ice water. "Engaged? Richard, I'm not even seeing anyone." "It doesn't have to be real," he pressed, "just for appearances. Think about it, okay? We'll discuss more in the morning." As I hung up, I turned to find Maya watching me with a guarded expression. "Everything okay?" she asked. I forced a smile, trying to ignore the sinking feeling in my chest. "Yeah, just work stuff. I should probably get going." Maya walked me to the door, the earlier intimacy between us replaced by an awkward tension. As I stepped out into the cool night air, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing at a crossroads, with Maya in one direction and my career in the other. That night, as I tossed and turned in bed, my dreams were a confusing jumble of emerald eyes, disapproving clients, and the ghost of a kiss that never happened. I woke up feeling more conflicted than ever, knowing that the decision I made in the coming days would change the course of my life forever. Little did I know just how complicated things were about to become, or how deeply my choices would affect not only my own life but the lives of those around me. The next morning, I dragged myself into the office, feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head pounded from too much wine and too little sleep, but it was nothing compared to the ache in my chest. I couldn't shake the image of Maya's disappointed face as I'd left the gallery. Richard cornered me as soon as I walked through the door. "Leslie, my office, now." I followed him, my stomach churning. He closed the door behind us and fixed me with a stern look. "Have you thought about what we discussed?" I swallowed hard. "Richard, I'm not sure I'm comfortable." He cut me off with a wave of his hand. "Leslie, you're one of our best. The Callahans love you, but they're old-fashioned. They want to see stability, tradition. A young, ambitious woman like yourself, they need to see you're settled." "But a fake engagement?" I protested weakly. Richard leaned forward, his voice low and urgent. "It's just for a few months. We land this account, and you'll be on the fast track to partner. Isn't that what you've always wanted?" I felt my resolve crumbling. Partner by 35 had been my goal since I started at the firm. Could I really throw that away for what? A woman I barely knew? Okay, I heard myself say. I'll do it. The next few hours passed in a blur. Richard's assistant produced a gaudy diamond ring that felt like a lead weight on my finger. A hasty photo shoot was arranged, and suddenly there were pictures of me and a handsome male model plastered all over our proposal materials. As I stared at the images, my fiancé's arm wrapped possessively around my waist, I felt a wave of nausea that had nothing to do with my hangover. By lunchtime, I needed air. I escaped to a nearby cafe, hoping the caffeine would clear my head. As I waited in line, I heard a familiar voice behind me. Well, if it isn't the blushing bride-to-be. I spun around to find Maya standing there, her expression unreadable. My heart leapt into my throat. Maya, She held up a hand, cutting me off. No need to explain, Leslie. I saw the announcement in the business section this morning. Congratulations. The bitterness in her voice was unmistakable. I felt my cheeks burn with shame. It's not what you think, I started. But Maya was already turning away. I hope he makes you very happy, she said over her shoulder, her voice dripping with sarcasm. I watched her walk away, feeling like my world was crumbling around me. I wanted to run after her, to explain everything, but my feet remained rooted to the spot. Back at the office, I threw myself into work, trying to ignore the growing pit in my stomach. The Callahan meeting was set for the end of the week, and there was still so much to do. As I pored over spreadsheets and marketing materials, my mind kept drifting back to Maya. The hurt in her eyes haunted me. I found myself reaching for my phone a dozen times, my finger hovering over her number in my contacts. But what would I say? How could I explain this mess without jeopardizing everything I'd worked for? The week crawled by, each day feeling longer than the last. I avoided my usual haunts, terrified of running into Maya again. Even Sarah noticed something was off, but I brushed off her concerns with vague excuses about work stress. Finally, the day of the Callahan meeting arrived. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my perfectly tailored suit and staring at the ring that felt more like a shackle with each passing day. The woman looking back at me was a stranger, polished, professional, and utterly miserable. As I walked into the conference room, plastering on my best fake smile, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window. For a moment, I saw myself through Maya's eyes, a fraud, a sellout, someone who had compromised her true self for the sake of a business deal. The meeting went smoothly. The Callahans were charmed by my fiancé and impressed by our proposal. As we shook hands at the end, Mr. Callahan beamed at me. "You remind me of my wife when we first got engaged," he said warmly. "Hold on to that one, he's a keeper." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As soon as they left, I bolted for the bathroom, barely making it to a stall before emptying the contents of my stomach. When I emerged, pale and shaky, Richard was waiting for me with a triumphant grin. "We did it, Leslie. The Callahans are on board. This is huge for the firm, and for you. How does it feel to be on the fast track to partner?" I forced a smile, but inside I felt hollow. "Great," I lied. "Just great." As I walked home that evening, the weight of my decisions pressing down on me, I realized I was at a crossroads. I had everything I thought I wanted: career success, financial stability, the respect of my peers. But as I passed a small art gallery, its windows glowing warmly in the twilight, I felt a longing so deep it took my breath away. I stood there for a long moment, staring at my reflection in the gallery window. The woman looking back at me wore a mask of success, but her eyes were filled with an unmistakable sadness. In that moment, I knew I had a choice to make. I could continue down this path, living a lie for the sake of my career, or I could take a leap into the unknown, risking everything for a chance at real happiness. As I turned away from the gallery, my mind made up. I had no idea of the challenges that lay ahead. But for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. The weeks following the Callahan deal were a blur of meetings, presentations, and forced smiles. I threw myself into work, hoping to drown out the constant voice in my head that whispered I was living a lie. But no matter how busy I kept myself, I couldn't shake the image of Maya's hurt expression that day in the cafe. It was Sarah who finally dragged me out of my self-imposed exile, insisting that I needed to celebrate my engagement properly. "Come on, Les," she pleaded over the phone. "One night out, we'll hit the town, have a few drinks, maybe dance a little. It'll be like old times. I hesitated, but the desperation in Sarah's voice wore me down. Fine, I sighed, but nothing too crazy, okay? Sarah's idea of nothing too crazy turned out to be a whirlwind tour of Boston's hottest clubs. By midnight, my head was spinning from a potent combination of tequila shots and pulsing bass. As we stumbled out of our third club of the night, Sarah linked her arm through mine, her words slurring slightly. You know what, Les? You don't seem very happy for someone who just got engaged and landed a huge account. I froze, caught off guard by her perceptiveness, even in her drunken state. I'm just tired, I lied, avoiding her gaze. Sarah stopped walking, turning to face me. Her blue eyes, usually so full of mischief, were suddenly serious. Bullshit. I've known you since college, Leslie Thompson. Something's eating at you, and it's not just work stress. Maybe it was the alcohol, or maybe it was the weight of weeks of deception, but in that moment, standing on a street corner in the early hours of the morning, I felt my carefully constructed facade begin to crumble. It's all fake, Sarah, I blurted out, my voice cracking. The engagement, the perfect life, it's all a lie. Sarah's eyes widened. What are you talking about? Once I started talking, I couldn't stop. The whole story came pouring out, the pressure from work, the fake engagement, and Maya. Especially Maya. I think I'm falling for her, I admitted, tears streaming down my face. And I've ruined everything before it even had a chance to start. Sarah listened in stunned silence, then pulled me into a fierce hug. Oh, Les, she murmured. Why didn't you tell me sooner? We made our way back to my apartment, the cool night air sobering us slightly. As I fumbled with my keys, Sarah placed a hand on my arm. Leslie, she said softly, you know you're my best friend, right? No matter what. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Good, she continued, because I need you to know that I support you no matter who you love, man, woman, or anyone in between. Relief washed over me, and I pulled Sarah into another hug. As we stumbled into my apartment, giggling and shushing each other like we were back in our college dorm, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. We collapsed onto my couch, kicking off our heels and reaching for the bottle of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. As Sarah poured generous glasses, she fixed me with a mischievous grin. So, tell me more about this, Maya. Is she hot? I felt my cheeks flush, and not just from the alcohol. God, Sarah, she's gorgeous, and smart, and passionate, and... Sounds like someone's got it bad, Sarah teased, nudging me with her elbow. We spent the next hour talking and laughing, the wine flowing freely as I regaled Sarah with stories of my encounters with Maya. As the night wore on, our conversation turned more philosophical, pondering the nature of love and identity. You know, Sarah slurred, gesturing with her wine glass, I've always wondered what it would be like to kiss a girl. I nearly choked on my wine. What? Sarah shrugged, a playful glint in her eye. Just curious, I guess. Have you ever... I shook my head, suddenly very aware of how close we were sitting. No, I haven't. There was a moment of charged silence, the air between us thick with unspoken possibility. Then, before I could process what was happening, Sarah leaned in and pressed her lips to mine. The kiss was soft, tentative, and tasted of wine and lip gloss. For a moment, I was too shocked to respond. Then, caught up in the emotions of the night and the warmth of human connection, I found myself kissing her back. It was over as quickly as it began. We broke apart, both breathing heavily, staring at each other with wide eyes. Wow, Sarah whispered. That was... Yeah, I agreed, my mind reeling. We sat in stunned silence for a moment, the reality of what had just happened slowly sinking in. Then, almost simultaneously, we burst into nervous laughter. Oh my God, Sarah giggled, covering her face with her hands. I can't believe we just did that. I leaned back on the couch, a mix of emotions swirling inside me. Me neither. Are we okay? Sarah reached out and squeezed my hand. Of course we are. We're best friends, remember? Nothing changes that. As the laughter subsided, a comfortable silence fell between us. Sarah yawned, stretching out on the couch. Mind if I crash here? I don't think I can make it home. I nodded, grabbing a blanket from the closet and tossing it to her. As I headed to my bedroom, Sarah's voice stopped me. Les? For what it's worth, I think you should follow your heart. Life's too short for fake engagements and hidden feelings. I smiled softly, gratitude washing over me. Thanks, Sarah. Good night. As I lay in bed that night, my head spinning from more than just the alcohol, I couldn't help but wonder what the morning would bring. One thing was certain, my life would never be the same again. The morning after my drunken escapade with Sarah dawned bright and merciless. I woke to a pounding headache and a mouth that tasted like I'd licked the bottom of an ashtray. As the events of the previous night came flooding back, I groaned and buried my face in my pillow. I'd kissed my best friend. I'd admitted my feelings for Maya, and I was still technically engaged to a man who didn't exist. Fuck, I muttered, dragging myself out of bed and into the shower. The hot water helped clear my head, but it did nothing to wash away the guilt and confusion that clung to me like a second skin. When I emerged from the bathroom, I found Sarah in the kitchen, looking as rough as I felt. She offered me a weak smile and a cup of coffee. "So," she said, her voice slightly raspy. "That was something." I nodded, taking a long sip of coffee before trusting myself to speak. "Sarah, about last night." She held up a hand, cutting me off. "Les, it's okay. We were drunk, we were emotional, it happened. But we're good, right?" Relief washed over me. "Yeah, we're good." We spent the next hour nursing our hangovers and talking through the events of the night before. By the time Sarah left, we'd agreed that while the kiss had been nice, it wasn't something either of us wanted to pursue further. Our friendship was too important to risk. As I closed the door behind her, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. At least one relationship in my life was uncomplicated. The rest of the weekend passed in a blur of work and introspection. By Monday morning, I'd made a decision. I couldn't keep living this lie. I had to come clean, consequences be damned. I marched into Richard's office first thing, my heart pounding but my resolve firm. "Richard, we need to talk." He looked up from his computer, eyebrows raised. "What's on your mind, Leslie?" I took a deep breath. I can't do this anymore. The fake engagement, the lies, it's not who I am. I'm sorry. But I'm out. Richard's face darkened. "Leslie, think about what you're saying. This could ruin everything we've worked for." "I know," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "But I'd rather lose a client than lose myself." I turned and walked out, ignoring Richard's protests. As I packed up my desk, a strange calm settled over me. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. My newfound peace lasted exactly 3 blocks. As I rounded the corner, lost in thought about what I'd do next, I nearly collided with a familiar figure. "Maya," I gasped, my heart leaping into my throat. She looked as startled as I felt, her green eyes wide with surprise. "Leslie, what are you doing here?" I gestured vaguely at the office building behind me. I just quit my job." Maya's eyebrows shot up. "What? Why?" The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Because I couldn't keep lying about the engagement, about who I am, about how I feel about you. Maya took a step back, her expression guarded. "Leslie, what are you saying?" "I'm saying I made a mistake," I said, my voice breaking. "I let fear and ambition push me into something that wasn't true to who I am. But meeting you, it changed everything." Maya's eyes flashed with a mix of emotions, hope, anger, confusion. "And your fiancé?" I shook my head. "There is no fiancé. It was all a lie for a client, a stupid, horrible lie that I never should have agreed to." For a long moment, Maya just stared at me, her face unreadable. Then, without warning, she closed the distance between us and kissed me. It was nothing like kissing Sarah. This was fire and lightning, a storm breaking after weeks of tension. I melted into her, my hands tangling in her hair as hers gripped my waist. When we finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Maya rested her forehead against mine. "I've wanted to do that since the day we met," she whispered. I laughed, giddy with relief, and something that felt dangerously like love. "Me too." We stood there on the sidewalk, oblivious to the curious glances of passers-by, lost in our own world. But as the initial euphoria faded, reality began to creep back in. "Maya," I said softly, "I need you to know that I'm still figuring things out. This is all new to me, and I'm scared." She nodded, her eyes soft with understanding. "I know. We can take it slow, figure it out together." "If that's what you want?" I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. We spent the rest of the day wandering the streets of Boston, talking and laughing and stealing kisses like teenagers. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the city, Maya turned to me with a mischievous glint in her eye. "So, unemployed girl," she teased. "What's next for you?" I grinned, feeling lighter than I had in years. I have no idea, but for the first time in my life I'm excited to find out. As we walked hand in hand towards the tea station, I couldn't help but feel that this was the beginning of something beautiful. There were still challenges ahead, explaining to my family, dealing with the fallout at work, navigating a new relationship and a new identity. But with Maya by my side, I felt ready to face whatever came next. Little did I know, the universe had a few more surprises in store for us. But in that moment, walking through the streets of Boston with the woman who had turned my world upside down, I was happier than I'd ever been. The honeymoon phase of my relationship with Maya was intoxicating. We spent every spare moment together, exploring Boston's hidden gems and each other. Her gallery became my second home, and I found myself falling in love not just with Maya, but with the vibrant world of art she introduced me to. But reality has a way of intruding on even the most perfect romances. 2 weeks after I quit my job, I was jolted back to earth by a phone call from Richard. "Leslie," he said, his voice tight with tension, "we need to talk. The Callahans are asking questions." My stomach dropped. In the whirlwind of new love, I'd almost forgotten about the lie that had started it all. "What kind of questions?" "They want to meet your fiancé. In person." I closed my eyes, feeling the walls closing in. "Richard, I told you I'm out. I can't keep up this charade." "Leslie, please," he pleaded. "Just one dinner, for the sake of the company. After that, you can bow out gracefully. Say you've broken up, whatever you want." I wanted to refuse, to tell him to go to hell, but a small part of me felt responsible for the mess I'd created. "Fine," I said finally. "One dinner, but after that, I'm done, for good." As I hung up, I caught sight of my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked torn, conflicted. I'd thought I was done with lies, but here I was, agreeing to one last deception. Telling Maya was the hardest part. We were curled up on her couch, a half-empty bottle of wine between us, when I broke the news. "You're doing what?" she asked, pulling away from me. I winced at the hurt in her voice. "It's just one dinner, Maya, to tie up loose ends. After that, it's over, I promise." Maya was quiet for a long moment, swirling the wine in her glass. "I thought we were done with the lies, Leslie." "We are," I insisted, reaching for her hand. "This is, cleaning up the mess I made, making things right." She nodded, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. As she leaned in to kiss me, I tasted the bitterness of disappointment on her lips. The next few days were a blur of preparation. Richard hired an actor to play my fiancé, and we spent hours rehearsing our love story. With each practice session, I felt a little piece of myself slipping away. The night of the dinner arrived, and I found myself seated at a high-end restaurant, smiling and laughing with the Callahans as my fiancé charmed them with fabricated tales of our romance. As Mr. Callahan raised a toast to our future happiness, I caught a glimpse of movement by the bar. My heart stopped as I recognized the figure standing there, her green eyes wide with hurt and betrayal. Maya. I excused myself hastily, nearly knocking over my chair in my rush to reach her, but by the time I made it to the bar, she was gone. The rest of the dinner passed in a haze of anxiety and guilt. As soon as I could politely escape, I raced to Maya's apartment, praying she'd be there. I found her on the roof, a place she'd once told me she went to think. She was silhouetted against the Boston skyline, her back to me as I approached. "Maya," I said softly, my voice cracking. "I can explain." She turned to face me, and the pain in her eyes nearly brought me to my knees. "Explain what, Leslie? How you're still living a lie? How everything between us has been built on deception?" "No," I protested, reaching for her. She stepped back out of my reach. "What we have is real, Maya. You have to believe that." "Do I?" she asked, her voice bitter. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're still the same person who is willing to fake an engagement for a job. How do I know this isn't just another role you're playing?" Her words hit me like a physical blow. "Because I love you," I blurted out, surprising myself with the intensity of the admission. Maya's eyes widened, a flicker of something. Hope, maybe, crossing her face before it was replaced by caution. "Love isn't enough, Leslie. Not if I can't trust you." We stood there in silence, the weight of unspoken words hanging heavy between us. Finally, Maya spoke again, her voice soft and sad. "I think you should go. I need time to think." I wanted to argue, to beg her to let me stay and work things out, but I knew I'd lost that right. So instead, I nodded, tears streaming down my face as I turned to leave. As I reached the door to the roof, I paused. "I meant what I said, Maya. I love you, and I'm done with the lies. For real this time." She didn't respond, and I didn't look back as I left. The next few days were the longest of my life. I threw myself into job hunting, desperate for any distraction from the ache in my chest. But everywhere I went, I saw reminders of Maya, in the art on cafe walls, in the flash of dark hair on the street, in the green of the leaves in the park. It was Sarah who finally pulled me out of my funk, showing up at my apartment with a bottle of tequila and a determined look in her eye. "Enough moping," she declared, pushing past me into the living room. "We're going to fix this." As we sat on my couch, passing the bottle back and forth, Sarah helped me craft a plan. It wasn't enough to just tell Maya I was done with the lies. I had to show her. The next morning, nursing a hangover but filled with renewed purpose, I set my plan in motion. I started with Richard, marching into his office unannounced. "I quit," I said simply. "For real this time. And I'm telling the Callahans the truth." Richard's face turned an alarming shade of red, but I was already walking out the door, feeling lighter with each step. Next, I called my parents. Coming out to them over the phone wasn't ideal, but I couldn't wait any longer. To my surprise and relief, their response was one of love and acceptance. "We just want you to be happy, sweetheart," my mom said, her voice thick with emotion. With each truth I told, each lie I unraveled, I felt more like myself, but the hardest task was still ahead of me. As I stood outside Maya's gallery, a bundle of her favorite flowers in my hand and my heart on my sleeve, I took a deep breath. It was time to lay it all on the line, to be completely honest not just with Maya, but with myself. I pushed open the door, the familiar chime of the bell announcing my arrival. Maya looked up from her desk, her eyes widening as she saw me. "Leslie," she said, her voice a mix of surprise and caution. "What are you doing here?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the most important conversation of my life. "I'm here to tell you the truth, all of it. If you'll let me." Maya's eyes flickered between my face and the flowers in my hand. For a moment, I thought she might tell me to leave, but then she nodded slowly. "All right, Leslie. I'm listening." I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "I've been an idiot, Maya, a scared, confused idiot who's been running from the truth for too long. But I'm done running." I laid out everything, my fears about my sexuality, the pressure I'd felt at work, the lies I'd told to others and to myself. As I spoke, I watched Maya's expression shift from guarded to thoughtful to something I couldn't quite read. "I've spent so much of my life trying to be what others wanted me to be," I said, my voice cracking. "But being with you, it's the first time I've felt like I could just be me. And I almost ruined it because I was too scared to embrace that." Maya was quiet for a long moment after I finished. Then, to my surprise, she laughed softly. "You know, when I first met you, I thought you had it all figured out. Successful career, confident attitude. I never imagined you were struggling with all of this." I felt a glimmer of hope. "I'm still figuring things out," I admitted. "But I know one thing for certain, I love you, Maya. And if you'll give me another chance, I promise to be honest with you, and with myself, from now on." Maya stood up, moving around her desk to stand in front of me. Her green eyes searched mine, and I held my breath, waiting. "I love you too, Leslie," she said finally. "But love isn't always enough. I need to know I can trust you." I nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "I know. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn that trust back." What happened next was a blur of emotion and sensation. One moment we were standing apart, the next Maya's lips were on mine, fierce and demanding. I responded with equal passion, pouring every ounce of love and regret and hope into the kiss. Afterwards, we lay tangled together on the small couch in Maya's office, my head resting on her chest as she traced lazy patterns on my back. "Well," Maya said, a hint of amusement in her voice. "That wasn't quite how I expected this conversation to go." I laughed, pressing a kiss to her collarbone. "Me neither. But I'm not complaining." We fell into a comfortable silence, basking in the afterglow. But as the minutes ticked by, I felt a nagging worry creep in. "Maya," I said hesitantly, "where do we go from here?" She was quiet for a moment, her hand stilling on my back. "I don't know," she admitted. "This doesn't magically fix everything. We still have a lot to work through." I nodded, feeling a lump form in my throat. "I know. And I meant what I said. I'll do whatever it takes." Maya tilted my chin up, meeting my eyes. "It won't be easy. We both have our own baggage to deal with. But I think it could be worth it." Hope bloomed in my chest. "Yeah?" She smiled, soft and genuine. "Yeah. We'll take it one day at a time, okay?" I nodded, leaning in to kiss her gently. One day at a time. We spent the rest of the afternoon talking, really talking, about our fears and hopes and dreams. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow through the gallery windows, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. "I should probably go," I said reluctantly, sitting up and searching for my discarded clothes. "I have a big day tomorrow." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Oh?" I grinned, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement. "Yeah, I'm meeting with the Callahans to tell them the truth. No more lies, remember?" Maya's eyes widened. "Leslie, are you sure? That could have serious consequences for your career." I shrugged, pulling on my shirt. "Maybe, but I'm done letting fear control my life. Whatever happens, I'll face it honestly." Maya stood up, wrapping her arms around me from behind. "You're braver than you give yourself credit for," she murmured, pressing a kiss to my shoulder. As I left the gallery that evening, I felt like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in my life, I felt ready to face whatever challenges came my way. Little did I know, the universe had one more surprise in store for me. As I rounded the corner towards my apartment, lost in thoughts of Maya and our future, I nearly collided with a familiar figure. "Leslie?" a voice said, thick with surprise, and something else I couldn't quite place. I looked up, my heart skipping a beat, as I recognized the man standing before me. It was Richard, and from the look on his face, he had some news that was about to turn my world upside down once again. "Richard?" I stammered, my post-Maya bliss evaporating in an instant. "What are you doing here?" His face was a storm of emotions, anger, disappointment, and something that looked unsettlingly like triumph. "I think we need to talk, Leslie, now." Before I could protest, he was steering me towards a nearby coffee shop. As we settled into a corner booth, I couldn't shake the feeling that my carefully reconstructed world was about to come crashing down around me. "I just got off the phone with the Callahans," Richard said, his voice low and intense. "They're pulling their account." My stomach dropped. "Richard, I'm so sorry. I was going to tell them the truth tomorrow." He held up a hand, cutting me off. "It's not about the fake engagement, Leslie. They found out about your relationship with Maya." I felt the blood drain from my face. "How?" "Someone sent them photos of you two outside her gallery, very cozy photos." His eyes narrowed. "Care to explain?" In that moment, I had a choice. I could lie, try to salvage what was left of my professional reputation, or I could stand by the promise I'd made to Maya, and to myself. I took a deep breath. "Maya is my girlfriend. I'm gay, Richard, or bisexual. I'm still figuring it out, but I'm done hiding who I am." Richard's expression hardened. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The Callahans are one of our biggest clients. This could ruin the company." Guilt washed over me, but I forced myself to meet his gaze. "I'm sorry about the account, truly, but I'm not sorry for being who I am." He leaned back, a cold smile playing at his lips. "Well, I hope your newfound authenticity is worth it, because you're not just losing your job, Leslie. I'm going to make sure you never work in this industry again." The threat hit me like a physical blow. "You can't do that," I whispered. "Watch me," he snarled, standing up. "You should have stuck to the plan, Leslie. Now you'll pay the price." As he stormed out of the coffee shop, I sat there, stunned. The life I'd worked so hard to build was crumbling around me, and for a moment I felt utterly lost. But then I thought of Maya, of the connection we'd forged, of the promise I'd made to live honestly no matter the cost. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and dialed her number. "Maya, I need you." An hour later, I was curled up on Maya's couch, a mug of tea cooling in my hands as I recounted my conversation with Richard. Maya listened silently, her face a mix of concern and anger. "He can't do this," she said when I finished. "It's discrimination. We could fight it." I shook my head, feeling suddenly exhausted. Even if we could prove it, the damage is done. My reputation in the industry is shot. Maya pulled me close, and I let myself sink into her embrace. "What are you going to do?" she asked softly. I was quiet for a long moment, considering. Then, almost to my own surprise, I started to laugh. Maya pulled back, eyeing me with concern. "Leslie, are you okay?" I nodded, wiping away tears that were equal parts mirth and relief. "I'm okay. I'm free, Maya. For the first time in my life, I don't have to pretend anymore. No more lies, no more hiding. It's terrifying, but it's also liberating," she supplied, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Exactly." I leaned in, kissing her softly. "I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I know I want to do it with you." Maya's smile widened. "I think I might have an idea." The next few weeks were a whirlwind. True to his word, Richard blacklisted me in the marketing world. But Maya, it turned out, had connections in the art scene that went far beyond her small gallery. With her encouragement, I started freelancing, using my marketing skills to help up-and-coming artists promote their work. It wasn't the high-powered career I'd always envisioned, but I found a satisfaction in it that I'd never experienced before. Coming out to my family was another hurdle, but to my surprise and relief, they were more supportive than I could have hoped. My mother's only complaint was that I hadn't told her sooner. "We just want you to be happy, sweetheart," she said, echoing her words from our phone call weeks earlier. This time, I believed her. As for Maya and me, we took things one day at a time, just as we'd promised. There were bumps along the way, misunderstandings, old insecurities rearing their heads, but we faced them together with honesty and love. 6 months after that fateful night in the gallery, Maya and I stood hand in hand on the rooftop where we'd had our first real fight. The Boston skyline glittered around us, a reminder of how far we'd come. "I have something for you," Maya said, reaching into her pocket. My breath caught as she pulled out a small velvet box. "Maya." She opened it, revealing a simple but beautiful ring. "This isn't a proposal," she said quickly. "Not yet. But it's a promise. A promise that no matter what life throws at us, we'll face it together, honestly and openly." Tears blurred my vision as I nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. Maya slipped the ring onto my finger, then pulled me in for a kiss that felt like coming home. As we stood there, wrapped in each other's arms with the city spread out before us, I thought about the journey that had brought me to this moment. The lies, the fear, the pain, but also the growth, the self-discovery and the love. I didn't have all the answers. My career was still uncertain, my identity still evolving. But for the first time in my life, I was truly, authentically me. And with Maya by my side, I was ready to face whatever the future held. As the sun set over Boston, painting the sky in brilliant shades of pink and orange, I realized that this wasn't an ending at all. It was a beginning, messy and imperfect and beautifully, gloriously real. And I couldn't wait to see what came next.